Hi guys, welcome back. In the last session, we completed Jira, and from today we are going to start with logging. First of all, understand this. Guys, we are working as a developers and we are going to write the code, and that code will be stored into GitHub repository. Multiple developers will be available. All the developers code will be stored into GitHub repository. We know how to create a repository, how to connect with the repository, how to store our code into GitHub repository. We will write the code, we will test that code, and we are going to integrate our code into GitHub repository. After our code is integrated in the GitHub repository, DevOps people will come into picture. DevOps people will take our code and they will deploy that code into server. Now this is our dev team. Assume that. So this is our dev team. Our dev team will write the code and the dev team will store the code into GitHub repository. After storing our code into GitHub repository, DevOps team will be available. That the DevOps team will deploy our code into server. Now, some companies will go for on-premises infrastructure. Nothing but they will purchase computers and they will set up all the platform to run our application. But some companies will go for cloud infrastructure like AWS, Azure, GCP. Now assume that our project is using cloud infrastructure. AWS cloud we are using. In this AWS cloud, they have configured our infrastructure. They have taken some Linux machines in the AWS cloud. In that Linux machine, our application is running. Assume that this is Linux VM. In the real time, out of 100% project deployment will happen on the Linux machine only. Windows we will use only for our development purpose. But project execution will happen on the Linux machine. Now, here our application will be deployed. Now, application is running in the Linux machine. Who will deploy our application in the Linux machine? Operations team will be available. DevOps people will take the code and will deploy our code into Linux computer. Now, when the application is deployed, end users will access our application. When end users are accessing our application, there is a chance of getting some problem. Application code has taken from the GitHub. From the GitHub, they will deploy our code into this Linux computer. After deploying the code into Linux computer, end users will be available. End users will access our application, which is running in the cloud platform. Public access will be available for our application. www.gmail.com, www.facebook.com, right? www.naukri.com, like this. End users will access our application. Users will access that. When user is accessing our application, there is a chance of getting some problem. Whatever the code that is working in our system, the same code may not work in the cloud platform. Code is working, but some problems are coming in the code. Some exceptions are coming in the code when it is accessing by end users. Some person purchased a product in our website by paying the money. Amount deducted from his account, but order is not delivered. Okay, the persons are not able to log in into our application. People are not able to create a new account in our application. Like that, some problems will occur when the project is running in the public platforms. Got it? Now here, when users are accessing our application, if everything is working as expected, we are good to go. Suppose sometimes functionality not working as expected. Users are not able to log in. Users are not able to register in our application. Then as a developer, we need to understand what is the problem in our project. In which functionality error is coming. In which class, in which method the problem is available. For that, we need to implement logging in our application. When our application is executing in the cloud platform or any other computer, whenever our application is running, when people are accessing our application, we should implement a concept called logging. Our application should generate one log file. Our application should generate one log file. Inside this log file, application execution details should be available. Got it? So who sent a request? What functionality got executed? Which method is executed? Which functionality executed? Which line is executed? Which line is having an error? That information we need to store in a log file. The process of storing application execution details to a file is called logging. So now see here, what is logging? The process of storing application execution details to a file is called as logging. Now, why we need to go for this logging? What is the benefit of this logging? Come on, guys. What is the benefit of this logging? With the log messages, we can understand execution flow of the application. With the log messages, we can understand execution flow of the application. Got it? We can understand exceptions occurred in the project. We can understand exceptions occurring in the project by seeing log messages. Users are accessing our application and they are trying to perform some operations in the project. Sometimes functionality working, sometimes functionality not working. So today morning, 7 o'clock, customers complained that they are not able to log in into the project. But from 10 o'clock, they are able to log in into the project. What is the problem at the 7 o'clock? Why they are not able to log in at 7 o'clock? Why they are able to log in at the 10 o'clock? Why there is no consistency? If they are able to log in from day out, complete day, no issue. But morning 7 o'clock, they are not able to log in. 10 o'clock, they are able to log in. That means there is some problem in our code. What is that problem? We need to understand. To understand the problems occurring in the project, to understand execution flow of the project, we are going to implement logging in our project. What is a logging? What is logging? The process of storing application execution details to a file is called as logging. With the log messages, we can understand execution flow of the application. 7 o'clock, what happened in the project? 7 o'clock, what happened to our login functionality? What class executed? What method executed? Which exception occurred at the 7 o'clock? That exception occurred because of which line number in our code? That information we need to understand to fix the problem. Right? For every project in the real time, logging will be available. So here logging means store application execution details to a file. Once the execution details are stored to the file, if you open that file, you can see what is the flow, how it is executed, what is the problem, at what time the problem occurred in which line number, which method, which class, everything we can track. Now here, as a developer, what we need to do is, we need to connect to the log file and we need to understand what is the problem. Now see here, as a developer, we are writing the code. Our code we are storing in the GitHub. After storing the code into the GitHub, here DevOps team comes into picture. DevOps team is going to deploy our code into cloud platform. After deploying our code into cloud platform, users will access our application, www.facebook.com, www.gmail.com. Like that, people will access our application. The people who are accessing our application, they are called as end users. They are customers of our application. When customers are accessing our application, there is a chance of getting some problem. Now, when some problem occurred in the project, our business will not run properly. If customers are not able to log in into Flipkart, what will happen? Their sales will be stopped. Their business revenue will be impacted. So whenever there is a problem, immediately we need to fix the problem. Can DevOps people understand what is the problem in our code? No. As a developer, we are writing the code. We need to understand what is that problem. We need to understand what is that problem, right? So to understand that problem, when our methods are executing in the project, the method execution details, we are going to store to a file. That file is called as a log file. What will be there in the log file? Application execution details will be available. For example, whenever we run the Tomcat server, can you see some messages on the console? Server started on the port number 8080. Those are called log messages only. Those are called log messages. And we are running our Spring Boot application. When we run the Spring Boot application, in the console, messages are printing, right? Application started, IOC container created, JPA repositories are scanned, project started, like that. Tomcat server started on the port number 8080. Whatever the messages we see on the console when we run the project, those messages are called log messages only. Those log messages will help us to understand exceptions which are occurring in our project. As a developer, we need to implement a logging in the project and we should be able to see the log messages. This is called log monitoring. What we need to do? Log monitoring. What is the meaning of log monitoring? What is the meaning of log monitoring? Checking the log messages. Reading the log messages is called as log monitoring. Why we need to read the log messages? To understand the problems occurring in the project. Once I see the problem, then only I can fix the problem. If I don't know where is the problem, I can't do anything. If I know where is the problem, then I can fix that problem. Now here, as a developer, we need to do two things in the project, right? We need to implement logging in the project. We need to implement logging in the project. To implement logging, we have several logging frameworks, right? What are the frameworks available? We have log4j and we have log4j2, okay? And we have logback and we have logstash. Logback available, logstash available, etc. Like this, there are several frameworks available to implement logging in the project. When I implement logging in the project, application will store the details to a log file. Once application store the details to the log file, we need to perform log monitoring. When exception occurred in the project, we need to monitor log messages and we need to troubleshoot the issue. We need to troubleshoot the problem and fix it. We need to troubleshoot the problem and fix the problem. Okay. To monitor the log messages in the industry, we will use several softwares. Got it? To monitor log messages, we will use several tools, right? What are the tools available? One is Putty. Putty is one of the tool that we can use, and WinSCP is one of the tool that we can use, and there is another tool called ELK stack. There is another tool called ELK stack, and there is another tool called Splunk tool is available. ELK stack is available and Splunk is also available. This Splunk is commercial, remaining all are open source, right? So MNC companies will go for Splunk, that is more advanced log monitoring software. ELK is available, that is open source software. Putty and WinSCP also available. They are also called as open source softwares, right? So logging is the process of storing application execution details to a file. So with this log file, we can understand execution stash available. Now, as a developer, when exception occurred in the project, we need to monitor log messages and we need to troubleshoot the problem in the project. How to monitor the log messages? To monitor the log messages, there is a concept called PuTTY and WinSCP, ELK stack and Splunk softwares are available. Now, go to our project. Our Spring Boot application is available. I'm just running my project. Right click. I'm not doing any logging here, guys. Just I am running my project. Run as boot application. When you run the boot application, you can go to the console. Can you see what all these things? These all are log messages only. They're saying that starting the application on this machine, default profile is available. JPA repositories are scanned, and they're saying connection pool is started. Entity manager factory created. Query is application started. Query is executed. Closing the entity manager and connection pool is open. Connection pool is closed. Like that, you can see lot of messages here. What are these messages? Console, or we need to generate the messages on the file. We need to generate the messages in the file. In the Spring Boot application, by default, logging is happening. Log messages are generated on the Yeah, fine, guys. Online students, I got disconnected with the power issue. Yeah, we are back. Can you hear me now? Online students, can you hear me now? Right. Yeah, fine. Fine, guys. So we are trying to understand what is logging and what is log monitoring. Can you tell me what is logging and what is log monitoring? Logging is the process of storing application execution details to a log file. What is the meaning of log monitoring? Log monitoring is the process of reading the messages from the log file. Now, assume that this is my application. When my application is executing, it should generate the messages to a log file. As a developer, we need to implement logging in the project. So application will store the messages to log file and we should connect it to the log file and we need to monitor the log messages. In order to connect it to this log file, we have some softwares. Can you tell me what are the softwares are available to monitor the log messages? What are the softwares available to monitor the log messages? So to monitor the log messages, we have several softwares here like Putty, WinSCP, Splunk, ELK. Putty is available, WinSCP is available, and ELK stack is available, and Splunk is also available. Splunk is also available. To implement the logging, what are the logging frameworks are available? To implement the logging, we have Log4j and we have Log4j2 and we have Logback and we have Logstash. Like this, there are several frameworks available to perform logging. These are logging frameworks, right? And these are log monitoring softwares. These are log monitoring tools, I can say. Out of these tools in the MNC company, this software will be used. This is licensed software. So the more advanced logging we can implement by log monitoring, we can do by using Splunk. Now I am running my Spring Boot application. When I run my Spring Boot application, it is generating some messages on the console. When we see the messages on the console, we will understand what happened in our project. The messages which are printing on the console, those are called as log messages. Similarly, we are running our Tomcat software, Tomcat server we are running. So whenever we run the Tomcat server, what will happen, guys? When we run the Tomcat server, what is happening? Some messages will be printed on the console. Whenever we run Tomcat server, some messages will be printed on the console. The messages which are printing on the console, those messages are called as log messages only. Right. Now here, let's understand log framework architecture. What is our logging architecture? Logging architecture. When we want to perform the logging, we need to understand what are the components that we are going to use. The first one is here, there will be a component called logger. There will be a component called logger. Logger is a class which is used to generate log messages. Logger is a class which is used to generate the log messages. Along with this logger, we will have a concept called layout. Along with the logger, there is a concept called layout. Layout will be available. Layout will represent what is the format of the log message, right? When I run boot application, you can see some format. First, date will be printed, then time will be printed, log level will be printed, class name will be printed, message will be printed. That is called log message format. Log message format will be represented by layout. Let me run my application, run as boot application. When I am running this Spring Boot application, you can see first here, date is printed, then time is printed, then level is printed, process ID printed, thread name is printed, our class name is printed, and message is printed. This is called format of the log message. By looking at this, I can understand when this log message is generated. 331 at 10:12, this log message got generated. So when your message got generated, when exception occurred, what date, what time, what class, what message, everything will be available in the message. So this format is represented by layout. Logger is a class which will generate the log message, and layout is the component which will decide pattern of the message. What information should be there in the log message, that will be decided by layout. After the layout, there is a component called appender. There is a component called appender. Appender is used to write your log message to the destination. Where you want to store the log message? Do you want to store on the console? Do you want to store in a file? Do you want to store in the database? Where you want to maintain application logs? That will be decided by appender. Now suppose if I want to store the data in the console, console appender will be available. If I want to print a message on the file, file appender will be available. If I want to store in the database, JDBC appender will be available. So like this, we will have our logging architecture. So in the logging architecture, we can see logger, layout, appender, and a destination. So what is the destination? It can be a console destination, it can be a file destination, or it can be a database also. You can store your log message to console. Currently, in the Spring Boot application, where my log messages are printing? My log messages are printing on the console. That means you can say console appender is executing. Okay. Now, I don't want on the console. I want to go for file. Then I need to go for file appender. I don't want in the file. I want in the database. I need to go for database appender. For every destination, one appender will be available. Here it is a console appender. To generate the log messages in the console, console appender will be available. To generate the messages in the file, we will have file appender. To generate the messages to the file, file appender will be available. To generate the messages in the database, here we will have JDBC appender. Okay, logger is available, layout is available, appender is available. Logger is a class which will give the message to the layout. Layout will format the message, and layout will give the message to the appender. Appender will give the message to the destination. In the Spring Boot, by default, the layout is available like this, and the default appender in the Spring Boot is a console appender. That's why the messages are storing in the console. Now, I have my application. My classes are available in the project. For example, in my project, I'm having one class called user service class is available. User service.java class is available. In this user service.java class, I want to implement logging. I want to implement logging in my class. User service.java is available, and similarly, user dao.java is also available. These are my classes. In my classes, my methods are available. When my method is executed, I want to generate a log message. Now, my classes should talk to this logger class. My classes should talk to logger class. My class will use the logger class, and my class will call the methods of the logger to generate a log message. So now in the project, for every class, we will use a logger. What is the purpose of the logger? Logger is used to generate the log message. What is the purpose of layout? Structure of the message. What is the format of the message? That will be decided by layout. What is the appender? Appender will decide the destination to store our log message. In the Spring Boot application, what is the default appender? The default appender is a console. What is the meaning of console appender? The log messages are storing on the console. If I want to store my message to a file, then I should go for file appender. If I want to format the log message, I need to use the layout. Are you guys able to follow me? Right. Now, what is logging? It is the process of storing application execution details to a log file. Let me save this. Perfect. Logging is the process of storing our application execution details to a log file. With the log messages, we can understand execution flow of the application. We can understand exceptions occurring in the project by seeing log messages. Logging frameworks available, logging tools also available. Logging architecture. Logging architecture. So what is the logging architecture here? In the logging architecture, there are mainly, we have logger, now, and we have layout, and we have appender, and we have destination. Okay. Logger, it is a class, this class providing methods to generate log messages. What log message you want to generate? That message you can generate by using a class called logger class. Then what is the layout? It represents message structure. That means log message structure, or I can say format of log message. What information should be there in the log message? That will be decided by layout. Next one, appender. It is used to write log message to destination. Right. What is the destination? It can be console, or it can be file, or it can be database also. In the real time, where we will store our log messages? Now, so we will use files to store our log messages. That means which appender we need to use? Which appender I need to use? I need to use file appender. By default in the Spring Boot, which appender is available? By default in the Spring Boot, we are having console appender. Are you able to follow me? Yes. Now here, let me create one project, guys. Let me create one project. File, new, Spring Starter project. I want to create one project. 12 logging application. Spring Boot logging application. Java 11 Maven. Okay. Next. I'm not using any dependency. I want to go with just my normal, or if you want, I can go for web dependency. Server will come. Web dependency. Spring web dependency. Click on finish. I created one project. In this project, I'm using Spring Boot. Am I selecting any dependency for logging? Did I select any dependency for logging? No. I have selected only web dependency to develop a web application. Forget about it. Now I am not selecting any dependency for the logging. If you go to project pom.xml, Spring Boot is available, and web starter is available, and test starter is available. Any dependency related to logging? Nothing. I have not selected any dependency related to logging. Now go here and check our Maven dependencies, which are provided by Spring Boot. Now you can see here ByteBuddy, Jackson, JUnit. Can you see here? Can you see here? The logging dependencies are available, or logging dependencies are not available? Logging details are available. Log4j API is available, and Log4j API is available. SLF4j is available. Logback is available. Okay, that means whenever we create a boot application, by default it will use logback framework to generate the log messages. Because of that logback only, we are able to see the messages on the console. Your application started, your Tomcat server started, messages will come. How the messages are coming? Because in the Spring Boot, by default, the logback dependencies are coming. Can I call it as a transitive dependency management? Yes, it is called as a transitive dependency management. And there is another jar file available. What is that? SLF4J jar is also available. Sir, what is log4j? What is SLF4J? We will understand that. Currently, remember that when I create a boot application, by default, log back dependency coming. By default, log back dependency coming. Now go to this start class and run this application. Now run as boot application. When I create the boot application, can you see the messages are printed? Can you see the messages are printed? Now, so it is telling Tomcat started on the port number 8080. Okay, let me stop the server. I will create one class, new class. I'm creating a class with a name called message controller. I'm keeping that inside a package. Message controller. Inside this class, I'm writing one method, public string welcome message. Public string welcome message. String message is equal to welcome to some name, right? Fine. Similarly, I'm returning this message from here. Just I declared a variable, I'm returning the variable. Same thing I'm going to do for one more method. Public string welcome message. Now I will change the method name. It is a greet message. Now I will say good morning. Right. So there are two methods available. Now let me bind these methods to a URL pattern, get mapping / welcome, get mapping / greet. Get mapping / welcome, get mapping / greet. Let me make it as a REST controller. What is this REST controller? We don't know. Leave it. I just created one class. Now let me run my project. Right click, run as boot application. My application is started. Now clear the console. No messages available in the console. Now go to browser. Let us type the URL localhost / 8080 / welcome. Am I able to get the response? Yes, I'm able to get the response. Now let me go here / greet. I'm able to get the response with the greet also. Yeah, I'm able to get the response with the greet also. When I send a request for the first method and second method, I got the response in the browser. Welcome to Ashok IT I got, and a good morning message also I got. But when I look in the console, can you understand how many times welcome message executed? How many times greet message executed? Do we have any information? When welcome message executed, when greet message executed? We don't have any information here, because we don't have any logging in our project. So Spring Boot log messages are executed, but my method log messages are not available. I'm sending the request continuously for the welcome message. Now let me go here, greet, send the request. Go here, send the request. Go here, send the request. But if you look in the console, anything is printing on the console or nothing is printing on the console? Nothing is printing on the console. That means we don't have any clue which method is executed, when that method executed, how many times that method executed. I don't have any information. Now I want to implement logging for that method. I want to implement logging for that method. To implement the logging, which object I need? Which object I need to implement the logging? To implement the logging, we need to go for logger. Now, let me get the logger in my project. Stop this. Observe carefully. In every class, we need to get the logger. Now here, I'm going to get the logger, private logger. Guys, remember, we need to import a package of SLF4J. We need to import a package called SLF4J package we need to import. Now, create a logger object. So in order to create the logger object, I'm using a concept called logger factory dot get logger. I want a logger object. Here I'm trying to get the logger object. To get the logger object, what I'm using? Logger factory dot get logger of the class name. So what is the return type of the get logger method? Logger object is coming. You see logger and logger factory I'm getting from org.slf4j package. Once we got the logger object, we can generate the log messages. Now see here, I'm writing a method logger dot info. I'm saying that welcome message execution started. I'm writing a message called welcome message execution started. Logger, okay, spelling mistake. Yeah. So now I got the logger dot info. Info is one method to print a log message. I got the logger object by using logger factory dot get logger. Once I got the logger object, I'm writing logger dot info. My log message should be generated. Now, once that method execution is completed, before returning the output, I will write one more line called logger.info welcome message execution ended. Welcome message execution started and welcome message execution ended. Now for this welcome method, I have implemented logging. I'm writing logger.info method execution started, logger.info method execution ended. Similarly, for the greet message also, I want to implement the logging. So here logger.info greet message execution started. Greet message execution started. Then next one, once this method is executed, I will say execution ended. So like this in the project, in every class, we will get the logger object. By using that logger object, we will generate the log messages. Right. Now let me run my application. Stop this project. Right click, run as boot application. Clear the console. Nothing is there on the console. Go to browser. Now I want to send a request for my application. /greet available. I send a request. Go to the console and observe what is there. Greet message execution started, greet message execution ended. At what time the method is executed? This is the date and time of the start point of the method execution. This is the date and time end point of the method execution. In the message controller, greet message execution started and greet message execution ended. Similarly, let me send a request for /welcome. Let me go and send a request for /welcome. Now I send a request for welcome. Go to this console and can you see now? Welcome message execution started and welcome message execution ended. So with this, I'm able to generate log messages in the project. To generate the log messages, I'm using my logger object. Logger.info. Logger.info is the method I am calling. Now here, am I deciding the layout or it is a default layout? It is a default layout. Am I deciding the appender or it is a default appender? It is a default appender. In my class, I'm getting only logger, and by using that logger, I'm calling the method called info method. Then log message is generated on the console. Why it is generating on the console? By default, Spring Boot will use console appender. Now, I don't want only console. I want to file also. Now let us refresh this project. In this project, is there any log file available, guys? Can you check this here? Is there any log file available in the project? Currently, log file is not available. We can even go to our workspace and we can check that. In this, I created a project called logging project. Can you see here any log file available? Log file not available. Now let me go to resources folder. Let me write one property logging.file name is equal to app.log. I'm writing one property in the application.properties file. In the Spring Boot, when we create a project, by default, properties file will be created. In that properties file, I'm writing one predefined property. Logging.file.name is equal to app.log. Now, let me refresh this project. And once again, I'm showing you. Can you see any log file created here? Any log file created here? Not created. Now let me run my project, run as boot application. Now messages are generating in the console or not? That means console appender is working. Now let us refresh our project, and can you see any difference now? What is the difference now? App.log file is created. Let us open app.log file. What is there in the app.log file? Whatever the messages are generated on the console, same messages are generated in the file also. Go to this workspace folder. Can you see the file? Log file is created. In that log file, log messages are available. So log file will look like this. My application started, log messages are generated. Let me send a request for my REST controller. In my project, REST controller is available. I want to send a request to the REST controller. Now, /welcome, I accessed, /greet, I accessed, /welcome, I accessed, /greet, I accessed. Right? Couple of requests I have sent for my application. Now, go to our project, refresh this, go to the log file, and can you see all our log messages are stored into this log file or not? Now can you see welcome message started, ended, greet started, ended, welcome started, ended, greet started, ended. Like these messages are stored into our log file. For example, in this controller, I will do one thing. Integer I is equal to 10 by 0. Integer I is equal to 10 by 0. What is the meaning of that? Arithmetic exception. And here string s is equal to null value s dot length. Okay. In the first method, null pointer, in the first method, arithmetic exception will come. In the second method, null pointer exception will come. Now assume that. Stop the server. Now refresh, run our application, run as boot application. Application started. Now in this application, we are already having a log file. Okay. Let's go here and send a request to our application. Good. Go to the project, greet. Now what happened? Error. I got some error. Status code 500, server error. Now go to /welcome. Here also some error is available. Now I want to understand where is the error in the project. Now go to our project, refresh. Now go to log file. When you see that log file, it is saying that greet method is executed and that method is executed in the console. What it is saying in the console? Null pointer exception and arithmetic exception. Let us reload our log file. Now go to app.log file. Now when you go for app.log file, check it. The messages are stored in the log file or not? Exception details are stored in the log file or not? Yes or no? This is my app.log file. In this app.log file, exception is occurred. Where is the exception? In.Ashok IT.rest.message controller welcome message method. In that method, line number 17, I got the problem. Now, when I read that log message, I will go to that class. I will see line number 17. Yes, there is a problem. I'm dividing number with the 0 that will give arithmetic exception. Currently, project is running in my system, log file also created in my system. So I can go to that folder, I can open the log file and I can see the log message. I can see the log message which is generated. But tomorrow in the real time, application will run in our system or application will run in the cloud platform. Application will run in the cloud platform. Then how to monitor that log message? By using log software. Log monitoring softwares are available. What are the log monitoring softwares available? As we discussed, Putty is available, WinSCP available, ELK available, Splunk is available. Are you able to follow me? Yes. How I generated the log messages? I created one Spring Boot application. In that Spring Boot application, I created one REST controller. In that, I have taken a logger object. How to take the logger object? By using logger factory dot get logger. Logger factory dot get logger. Message controller class. For this class, I want to get the logger object. Now, once for every class, if I have one more class, for that class also I will get the logger object. In that, in which method you want to perform the logging, in that method we are going to call logger.info. What is the meaning of logger.info? It will generate a log message. It will generate a log message. Now, this log message will be stored to the destination. What is the destination? I have given file name. This is also auto configuration. I am not telling to Spring Boot to use the file appender. I am just telling to use the file. When I tell that to use the file, what the boot is telling? Boss, this person is told me to use the file name for the logging. Then boot to understand that I want to generate the log messages in the file and it has taken the file appender. It is storing the messages to the log file. Are you guys able to follow me? Good. Next one, we need to understand logging levels. There is a concept called logging levels available. Currently, what logging level I have used? Logging.info I have used. There are several logging levels available in the project. So the first one, logging level. There is a level called trace is available and there is a level called debug available and third is the info and fourth is the warn and fifth one is error and the sixth one is the fatal. These are called as logging levels. These are called as logging levels. Currently, which level I am using? I am using info. It is default log level. It is default log level in boot application. It is the default log level in the boot application. How to change the log level? We can change it. Logging dot level. What is that? Logging dot level dot root is equal to, I will keep it as a debug. Okay guys, like this we can change the log level also. Now, if I don't use the log level, by default, what is the default level in the Spring Boot? By default, the level is a info. Now observe, I'm stopping my application and I'm running my application. Close unrelated projects, right click, run as boot application. How many log messages generated? Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How many log messages got generated now? Just 9 lines of messages are generated. All these messages are printed with a level called info. These messages printed with a level called info. Now here, let me set the level as a debug. I want to set the level as a debug level. Go here, logging dot level dot root is equal to debug. Root level means for the whole application, I want to set the level as a debug. For Spring Boot application, for my classes, for Spring Boot classes, I want to set the level as a debug level. Now, refresh our project, run our application, run as a boot application. Now you see. Now you see. What it is telling now, see how many messages are generated. How many messages are generated? How many messages are generated? Lot of messages are generated. What is the meaning of all these messages? These messages are telling what happened in our project. How Spring Boot started our project, all the messages are printing. It is telling message controller class available. For the in the message controller class, there are two methods available. They are binded to this URL pattern. Error controller is available. All the debug messages are printing. So what all the condition evaluation report is available. So many things are coming and printing here. Who is printing all these messages? Spring Boot is printing all these messages. Why Spring Boot is printing these many messages? Because the level is a debug level. Debug level will print a lot of log messages. What are the logging levels available in the project, guys? We have a level called trace level. We have a level called debug level, info level, warn level, error level, pattern level. Now here we need to understand the log level hierarchy. Log level hierarchy. Now tell me, if you know just Java coding, can you survive in the project? Only with the Java code, you can't complete your job. You can't complete your task. When you are writing a Java code, you need to review that code. You need to store that code into GitHub. You need to build that code and you need to test that code. You need to implement logging. Lot of other stuff also you need to do in the project, right? Coding is required. Along with the coding, these tools also required. Otherwise, you cannot become experienced developer. Good. Log level hierarchy. In the log level hierarchy, guys, trace is available. Trace is available. Then after the trace, what is there? After the trace, what is there? Debug is available. After the trace, the level is a debug. After the trace, the level is a debug. Then after info is available. Then after warn available. Then after error is available. Then after pattern. This is called log level hierarchy. Now remember one point. Whenever we set one level, now application will generate the log messages from that level to all the higher levels. When I said info level, that means info messages will be printed, warn messages will be printed, error will be printed, pattern will be printed. Now let me show you that practically. Here I have my log file. Let me delete it. I'm deleting my log file. Now here I have logger.info. Before that info, I'm going to write one more method called logger.d. Is debug message from greet. Okay, guys. So in my method, I'm having debug logger method. Info logger method is also available. Now let's observe. Debug method is available to print one message, and the info method is also available to print one message. Similarly, in the greet also, I'm having debug method and I'm having info method. Am I setting the log level or I'm not setting the log level? I'm not setting the log level. When I don't set the log level, what is the default log level in the project? What is online people? What is the default log level in the project? The default log level is info. Now right click, run as boot application. Right click, run as boot application. Clear the console. Clear the console. Go to the project and send a request to the welcome. I sent a request for the welcome and go to the console and check it. Here, what it is doing? Is it printing the debug message or it is printing the info message? Info message is printed or debug message is printed? Info message is printed. Let me remove the exception now so that you will get more clarity. I'm removing the exceptions. Okay. Stop the project and start it again. Right click, refresh, run as boot application. Now, run as boot application. Clear the console. Nothing is available in the console. Now go to our project, send a request for welcome. Method is executed. Okay. Now, in this method, we are having the logging. Check this. What messages are printed? Execution started, execution ended. But if you see in that method, before this execution started, there is a debug message. Why that is not printed? Hierarchy. What is the default log level? The default log level is info. In our project, we can write debug messages, we can write info messages, warn messages, error messages, fatal messages. But which messages will be executed, which messages will be generated, that it depends on the log level of our project. What is the default log level in the project? The default log level is info. Now, when you have log level, it will follow hierarchy. If the level is info, from info, all the other levels will be printed. Info will be printed, warn will be printed, error will be printed, fatal will be printed. Now let me go here. Let me add one more log message, logger dot warn. This is warning from welcome method. This is warning from welcome method. Now here, let me take this and keep in the greet also. This is a warning from the greet method. This is warning from greet method. So how many level messages available in my method now? 3 levels available. What are the 3 levels? Boot application. Run as boot application. Okay. So clear the console. Now currently no messages are available. Send a request for that. Send a request for that. Localhost colon 8080/welcome. I send a request. Go to the console and check the messages which are generated. What message generated? Info message generated. Warn message generated. Again info message generated. What about the debug? What about the debug? Debug is generated or debug is not generated? Debug is not generated. Why debug is not generated? What is the level? Level is the info. So whenever we set one log level, so this is the hierarchy, guys. This is the hierarchy. Don't say that, sir, it is a less than symbol, greater than symbol. Don't read that. It is not less than or greater than. It is representing hierarchy. If you set the level as a info, all these levels will be printed. Okay, guys. When you set the level as a info, from the info, all the other levels will be printed. If you set the level as a debug, all these levels will be printed. If you set the level as a trace, all the levels will be printed. Now, can I change the log level? Can I change the log level? Now I am setting the level as a debug. If I set the level as a debug, what messages will be printed? Debug, info, warn, error, fatal. All the levels will be printed. Now go here. I'm setting the root level as a debug. What is the meaning of root level? Whole project level is a debug. Now let's clear this, refresh, run as boot application. Stop this and start it again. Right click, refresh, run as boot app. Run as boot app. Now, so many messages will be printed because the debug level is enabled. Clear the console. Nothing is available. Now go to our project. Go to our project and send a request to this URL. I'm sending the request to that URL. Check the console. When you check the console, lot of messages are printing. Now here debug level messages are printed. Check this, scroll down where our messages are available. Now can you see? Can you see that? Is that message, debug message is printing? Yes, this is a debug message from the welcome. Welcome message execution started. This is warning from the welcome method. Welcome message execution ended. When I set the level as a debug, then what happened? What happened, guys? When I set the level as a debug, it is printing from debug level to all the higher levels. Are you guys clear with my point? Yes. Now here we understood what is logging and why we need to go for logging. What are the log frameworks available? What are the log monitoring tools available? And what is our logging architecture? And what are the log levels available? And what is the log level hierarchy? Now, when we set one log level, application will print log messages from that level to all the higher level messages. If you set the level as a debug, from debug to all the higher levels will be printed. If you set the level as a info, from the info to all the higher levels will be printed. If you set the level as a war, from warn level to all the higher levels will be printed. Are you guys clear with this one? Now the question is, when to use which level? When to use which log level? Come on, guys. When to use which log level? Right. Whenever you are developing the method, if you want to print low level details of your method's execution, application execution, each and every information I want to print, then you will go for debug. Any high level messages I want to print, then you will go for info. Any warnings that you want to print on the messages, then you will go for warn. Whenever exception occurred, then you will go for error level. Now here I'm going to take a try block. Inside the try block, I will write some code. Now here I'm writing catch block. Let's stop this. Now catch block is available and here exception E. So here I'm doing integer I is equal to 10 by 0. Now in this exception occurred. Earlier, whenever exception occurred, what we are doing earlier when exception occurred? When the exception occurred, we will go for print stack trace. What print stack trace will do? It will print the exception data on the console. Now I don't want to print exception on the console. I want to print exception on the log file. Okay. Now, whenever exception occurred, that exception data we are going to log by using logger.error. What is the logger.error? Error level. Logger.debug, logger.info, logger.warn, logger.error. Now here I will say exception occurred. Exception occurred and I will say e.getMessage. Why that exception occurred? I want to print the exception data in the log file. To print exception data in the log file, we will go for logger.error. Now, let me send a request to welcome method, refresh. Let me delete the log file. Let me remove this. If I remove, what is the level? When the level is info, error will be printed, error will not be printed. Error will be printed. Why error will be printed? Error is a higher level for the info. So from that level to all the higher levels will be printed. Now let me refresh this project, run this application, run as boot application. Clear the console. Application started. Clear this. Go to this, send a request. I have sent a request for the welcome. Now go here. Can you see? Error is printed. What is the error? Why we got the error? Divided by 0. Info is printed, error is printed, warn also printed. Now go to our log file, refresh app.log. In this app.log, error log is printed or error log is not printed? Error log is printed. Whenever we check the log file, we will see error messages. What is the error message? Exception occurred by 0. In the message controller, we got the exception. So when to use logger error level? When to use logger error level? When you want to store exception details to the log file, then we will go for logger.error. When we will go for logger.info? When we will go for logger.info? When you want to print a high level either info or we will go for error. Because if I keep the level as a debug, what will happen? Thousands of customers are accessing, so many messages will be generated. That will become difficult to monitor the log messages. So in some projects, they will keep info level as a root level. In some projects, they will keep error level as a root level. Okay, guys. In some projects, they will go for info level. In some projects, we will go for root level. Root level as a error. When the root level has a error, then what will happen? Only error messages and fatal messages will be generated. Right. So like this, once the log messages are generated here in the log file, I want to monitor my log messages. In order to monitor the log messages, some tools will be available. We'll talk about that later. First of all, did you get the clarity? What is log level and what is the default level and when to use which level? What is the default log level? What is the meaning of info? From that level to all the other levels will be printed. From that level, all the other levels will be printed. In the real time, which log level will be used? Either info or error will be used. What about the debug? We don't use that. Why we don't use the debug? It is very low level. It will print a lot of messages on the file. That will increase the log file size. That is not recommended. Okay, fine. So here I'm giving this property. What is the purpose of this property? To use a file appender by default in the Spring Boot. In Spring Boot, by default, it will use level. By default, it will use level as info. In Spring Boot, by default, it will use console appender. To generate the log messages to a file, to generate log messages in log file, we have to set below property. What is that property? Logging.file.name is equal to app.log. Where we need to set this property? We need to set this property in application.properties file. Okay. Now, how to generate the log? To generate that log, here I have created a class. In this class, I am getting the logger object. Using that logger object, I am writing the log messages. Now, logs will be generated on the console as well as logs will be generated on the file also. Good. So it is using console appender by default. If I want to use a file appender, then I need to set this property. With this property, log messages will be generated in the log file also. Are you guys clear with this one? Good. Fine. Next one. Here guys, in the real time, the logging process will be little different. What is that logging process? Now assume that I'm giving logging file name. So many messages are generating. My level is info only. Now assume that my application is accessing by millions of users. My application is accessing by millions of users. Then what will happen? So many requests are coming to our application. All the messages will be stored to the log file. Daily 1 lakh requests are coming. Daily 1 lakh requests are coming for my method. For every request, 2 messages are executing. 1 lakh requests, 1 lakh into 2, 2 lakh lines will be stored in the log file. After 1 month, daily 1 lakh. For 1 lakh requests, how many messages? 2 lakh messages are generating. 30 lakh requests are coming. 30 lakhs into 2. 60 lakh messages will be generated in the file. Now, in these 30 lakh requests, 1 lakh 15th request is failed. क्या करेगा? How many messages are there in the log file? 60 lakh messages are there in the log file. Customer told that 1 week back, I purchased a product in your application that is not delivered for me, my money deducted. Then what log I need to check? 1 week back log I have to check. Is it easy when you have only one log file? Is it easy when we have only one log file? It will become very, very, very difficult. So that's why in the real time, we are going to use a concept called rolling mechanism. What is the concept, guys? Rolling mechanism will be available. So in the real time, the log files will be rolled. Log files will be rolled. That means every day new log file will be created. That is called rolling the log file. Currently, it is using file appender. When it uses file appender, what will happen? File appender will create one file. All the messages will be stored into one file. If all the messages are stored into one file, after 1 month, can you guess the size of the log file? It will become very big. Is it easy to monitor the log messages from that log file? No. Why? Why it is not easy to monitor the log messages? There is only one file is available. In that one file, so many messages are available. It will become very difficult. Now observe, daily, how many people will purchase a product in the Amazon? Millions of people are purchasing. Now, I called the customer care. I told them that in the month of March, 15th March, night 8 p.m. I placed a order. Still, I did not get my product. 15 days back, I purchased a product in the Amazon. I'm waiting for the delivery. I did not get the delivery. Now, I called the customer care. Customer care people told that we did not receive any order from you, but my money got deducted. I have a proof. Money got deducted. But they are saying that we don't have any order from your mobile number in our database. Then what they need to do? They need to check the log file which is generated on the March 15th at night 8 p.m. Now, from March 15th to March 31st, 15-16 days are completed. Millions of people purchased the products by using Amazon application. How many messages will be there in the file? How many messages will be there in the file? GBs of data will be there. TBs of data will be there in the log file. Is it easy to monitor? No. That's why we don't create one log file for the whole application. We don't create only one log file for the whole application. In the real time, we are going to use a concept called rolling appenders. What is the concept, guys? Rolling appenders will be available. What is the meaning of rolling appenders? There are two types of rolling appenders are available. One is size-based rolling. One is size-based rolling, and the second one is time-based rolling. One is size-based rolling, and the second one is time-based rolling. So now, size-based rolling means I will tell to my application, if a log file size reached 1 GB, then create a new log file. Don't use the old log file. Are you guys getting my point? So after 1 GB data stored into the log file, then don't use that. You create another log file. You store it. In the second file also, 1 GB data stored. Then go for third log file. Third log file also reached 1 GB. Go to fourth log file. That is called size-based rolling. Based on the given size, if the file reaches to the given size, then new log file will be created. So that is one approach people will use in the project. And the second approach is time-based rolling. every day for every 24 hours, one new log file should be created. So March 13th logs, one file. March 14th logs, one file. March 15th logs, one file. March 16th logs, one file. Like that, files will be available. Whenever we are configuring size-based rolling and time-based rolling, how many log files will be created? Lots of files will be created. When there are multiple log files are creating, we will go for retention period. How many log files we need to keep in that location? I will keep the retention period 30 days. That means only last 30 days files should be available. Now, today is March 31st. When the today's log file is generated, February 28 log file will be deleted because only 35 log files will be created. When I go for tomorrow, when I go for April 1st, March 1st log file will be deleted. Like that, we can configure retention period. Retention period I will keep 30 days. What is the meaning of 30 days? Only 30 days log file should be available. Previous log file should be deleted. If I don't configure retention period, after 1 year, 365 files will be available. Are you guys getting my point? So in the real time, in every real time project, logging will be available. That logging also, rolling based logging will be available. How many ways we can roll the log file? In 2 ways we can roll the log file. What are the 2 ways to roll the log file? One is size based rolling and second one is time based rolling. Are you guys clear? Now, here if you see in our properties file, we will have properties for that. Now, what is this? What is this? Logging dot log back dot rolling policy clean history and startup. That means when application started, log files will be deleted. Rolling policy max history. How many previous log files you want to maintain? Logging register shutdown hook register, remove the log file. Now here, if you go for logging dot rolling policy file pattern, there are some properties are available. Total size cap, max history, max file size, file name pattern. So if you want to go for time based rolling, then you need to go for name pattern. If you go for name pattern, every day log file should be created with that particular date. With that particular date, the file will be created. Now, if you go for max file size, size based rolling. What is the meaning of max file size? If I specify 1 MB, after reaching 1 MB, new log file should be created. Now, max history. What is the meaning of max history? How many files that you want to maintain. Like this, you can configure rolling policy in our project. Now, how many types of rolling policies are available? Size-based rolling available and time-based rolling is also available. You can simply Google it. Spring Boot. Now, you can simply Google time-based or size-based rolling in the Spring Boot. Spring Boot time-based rolling. Spring Boot logging, rolling with the file appender, log rotation daily. What is the meaning of log rotation daily? Every day, new log file will be created. Now, go to this file. How to configure rolling file appender within the Spring Boot. Okay. So if you see here, package info level is available. They are configuring some configuration in the XML file. In the application.yml, you can specify like this: logging, logback, rolling policy, file name pattern, log file name with the date that should be created, and max file size 10 MB. What is the meaning of max file size 10 MB? Now, size-based rolling will be available. This is a YML configuration they have given. Like this, we can configure logging.logback.rolling policy, file name pattern, and logging policy max file size. Okay, guys. So like this, we can configure size-based rolling. Similarly, Can we configure Spring Boot logging, time-based rolling, Spring Boot logging, time-based logging, right? Spring Boot logging, configure Spring Boot logging with YML. Logging is available directly. Official documentation available for the Spring Boot. Now, log format will be available. What are the levels? Error, warn, info, debug, trace. They removed fatal. Logback does not have a fatal level. It is mapped to error level. So these are the normal levels which are available. But in the Spring Boot, we are using logback by default, right? In the logback, fatal is not available. They mapped the fatal to error level only. Console output, log console, color coded output will be available. This is the pattern we can configure. File output. When you give logging.path, it will be generated to a file. Now, log level, root level we can configure. Now in the boot application, the advantage is for DAO package, we can set one level. For controller package, we can set one level. Root also we can set one level. When I set the log level root, then what will happen? When I set the log level root, what will happen? For the whole project, the level will be applicable. Now, only for Spring Web module, I want to set the debug level. For Hibernate, I want to set the error level. Can I do that package level levels also? For my package also, I can set one level. In my project, Spring Boot I am using, Spring Web I am using, Spring Data JPA I am using. For web module, I want to set one level. For data JPA, I want to set one level. That also we can do. Now, logging groups also available. Log levels are available. Custom logging configuration. If you want to customize that configuration, you can create logback.xml, or you can create logback spring.groovy, logback spring.xml. What is the meaning of logback.xml? I don't want to go for default configuration of Spring Boot. I want to customize my logging configuration. Then we can configure that. We can specify appenders also, right? What appender you want to use? Do you want to go for file appender? Do you want to go for console appender? Do you want to go for rolling file appender? Do you want to go for time-based rolling? Do you want to go for size-based rolling? All this customization also we can do in the Spring Boot. There are several log frameworks available. Which log framework our Spring Boot is using by default? It is using logback. So now, am I specifying the level? If I don't specify, info. What is the appender by default? Console appender it is using by default. Can we customize that? Can we customize that? Yes. We can customize logging configuration in the Spring Boot. We can customize Spring Boot application log configuration by creating logback.xml file under src/main/resources folder. Okay, which appender you want, which layout you want, what type of rolling you want, all that configuration we can customize by creating one file called logback.xml. That logback.xml where we will keep under src main resources folder, we are going to keep our logback.xml file. Are you clear with my point? Yes. So what we learned as of now? What is logging? What is logging? Next one. What is log monitoring? And what is logging architecture? Logging architecture. In the logging architecture, what we understood? We understood logger, we understood layout, and we understood appender. Appender is available. What is the purpose of appender? What is the purpose of appender? It is used to store the message to the destination. Now, we understood log levels also. What we discussed? Log levels. What are the levels available? Trace, debug, info, war, error, fatal. But fatal supported or not supported? Up to error, we have the support in the log back. Log levels available. And do you know log level hierarchy? What is the log level hierarchy? Whatever the level you set, from that level it is going to take all the higher levels. If I set the info, warn will be printed or warn will not be printed. If I set info, warn will be printed because warn will come after info, right? If I set info will print and warn also will print. Log level hierarchy. How to set the log level? Do you know how to set log level? What is the property we are using? What is the property we are using? Log dot level dot root. What is the meaning of root? Whole project will use the debug level. Can I set the level module wise? Can I set the level module wise? Yes, we can set the level module wise also. Then next one, we understood how to implement logging in Java class. Do you know how to implement logging in the Java class? Yes, how to implement logging in the Java class? So here we are getting logger factory. We are getting logger factory. How I am getting the logger factory? Logger factory dot get logger. From which package? SLF for a package we are using to get the logger object. Then once we got this, how to implement logging in the Java class we understood. What is role based logging? What is rolling? What is rolling in logging? What is rolling in the logging? What is the rolling in the logging? I don't want to generate the messages to a single file. I want to create multiple log files to generate the log messages. How many ways we can do the rolling in the logging? Two ways. One is time-based rolling. Another one is size-based rolling. What is the meaning of time-based rolling? Every day, one log file will be created. What is size-based rolling? Based on the given size, the new log file will be created. Good. Any questions, anyone? You can, I will discuss that customization by using XML file. Okay. Now here, I want to customize my appenders and I want to customize my layout. In order to customize the configuration, then what we need to do? We need to go for logback.xml. So in the logback.xml, we can configure file appender and I can configure rolling file appender. I can format log messages. I can format level methods, anything, everything we can customize related to logging by using a file called logback.xml. In the tomorrow class, I will show you how to create this logback.xml and how to customize our layout, how to customize appender, how to customize our levels also. Once that customization is completed, then we need to monitor that log file by using putty or WinSCP or some other tools. Got it? Fine. Any other questions, anyone? Yep. Sorry, trace is very basic before debug. That will come before debug. Right. Yeah. How to store the messages in the database? To store the messages in the database, in the logback.xml, we need to configure JDBC appender. Generally, we don't use that. So any customization that you want to do, you need to do by using logback.xml. Okay, good. Any other questions, online people? Every project will use logging. If I don't use logging in the project, then what is the problem? If I don't use logging in the project, then what is the problem? We can't track the issues in the project. What is a message controller? Message controller is a Java class, Mr. Vaibhav. Yeah, it is a Java class, right? Perfect. Online people, any doubts, anyone? You can unmute your mic and you can speak out. Online students, any questions?
Hello.
Ashok,
Yeah, hi.
can we write messages in different files based on their levels?
Based on the level, you know, we don't do that, sir. We cannot do that. Okay.
Yeah, Ashok. How to write log file to Kafka topic?
How to write?
Log file to Kafka topic, log messages.
How to store the log messages to the Kafka topic? I will explain that in the coming
Sure.
classes.
Sure, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Next one.
In the production,
real-time
how we are going to
the real time we are going to use logback.xml to customize that configuration. Yes.
how to off the logs?
You can off the log also. Logging.level.root is equal to off. If you set the off, then logging will not happen. You can off that. Okay. Yeah. Next one.
Sir, what is transview dependency management?
That I already covered in the Maven classes. What is a transitive dependency? When you add one dependency, it will download all the required dependencies for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Chain of dependencies will be downloaded. That is called transitive dependency management. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Hello.
sir. Tell me. Yeah.
Sir, moving to Hyderabad.
Yep.
So, can you give someone's number that we can talk to with them regarding?
You can come to institute directly. Your people will be available. They will show you the hostels. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Fine. Good.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. How should we monitor logs in Splunk?
That is tomorrow's topic, madam. Today we discussed how to generate the logs, how to monitor the logs. That is tomorrow's topic. Okay.
Sir, Ashok IT special hostel is there? Is relative hostel?
No, sir. We don't have any hostel, sir.
Okay.
We don't have any hostel. Okay.
Sir, real-time project student can come to lab.
Yes, sir. You can come to the lab and you can practice.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. Thank you, guys. With this, I'm stopping for today. We'll meet in the tomorrow's class.